How many of you guys think of yourselves as reporters? 4? Okay. Okay, so I'm here to tell you guys that you're actually all reporters starting now. All of you guys. Okay? And your smartphone is your press badge. This is what you're going to be using to give yourselves license to go out and report events and start telling the truth about what's actually happening right now in our communities and in our country. Right now, as you guys know, we're in a changing cultural moment where people are basically migrating from television to the internet. And by the nature of the internet, it's basically is a democratizing, equalizing cultural moment. And we basically need to catalyze what is inevitable. These tools that we have right now can lead to every single one of us becoming more empowered in telling our stories, which then shape our larger political narrative. It's going to take you guys, all of us, really understanding that we have to empower ourselves psychologically to be able to say, I'm going to report on the truth. I'm not going to rely on the New York Times or Politico or anyone else to report it for me. I'm going to report it, and I'm going to put it out there. And I'm sure you've all had experiences where you posted something on Twitter or on Facebook, and it started going around. It started circulating, right? Have you guys had that experience personally? Okay, so most of us understand this, what is meant by things going viral, right? So that is going to be our highway. That's going to be how we're going to be able to have the kind of paradigm shift that we need in order to have real political change. You know, that shift we're talking about from people power to corporate power, from profit-driven media to truth-driven media. And we have to own this. We have to own the power of being able to tell those stories and to go out there and say, I'm the one that I can trust to tell this story. There are always some complications to the tools, but it's getting better and better. Every day there's a new app or a new software that is doing exactly what we want them to do, which is to empower us to have greater power and greater voice. Part of what I want to do is kind of talk to you a little bit about some of the tools, but mostly I'm here to try to get you to accept this kind of new power and responsibility that we have. And the change has to start today. I would really love for you guys to walk out of here feeling like you guys are all citizen reporters. And then go out and tell your friends and everyone else that they have to also do the same thing. So without us taking responsibility for getting the truth out, we're going to get the same old manufactured reality that we're seeing on television and produced by profit-driven corporate media. It's going to stay that way unless we do something about it. And so the events coming up in October with the October 6th event, and then the one that Eric and I are also organizing, the October 29th event, these are moments that we kind of know that mainstream media is likely to try to ignore us and try to marginalize whatever it is that we're doing. So even if it is in the mainstream media, they're not going to report it in the way we want them to report it. They're not going to report our version, our story, right? Most likely they're going to try to find some controversy or find someone that looks like, I don't know, the left-wing version of the Tea Party or whatever it is. So the only way we're going to counter this is we're prepared with our power to go out and say, that we have to flood the blogosphere, we have to flood the internet with our version of the reality. Because what it comes down to right now is it's a war of realities. Which story is going to be the most compelling? Which story is it going to be that people are going to use to understand their experiences? Is it going to be one produced by Fox or CNN? I'm sure you've all had experiences watching the news. It doesn't matter what cable news network it is, just going, that's not true, or that's kind of half a truth, and it's just never like really satisfying. It's rare when you see something, you're like, nailed it, they nailed it, right? It's very rare, right? Yeah, and so this is why you have to empower yourselves to be the ones to try to tell that story. So I'm sure there's a story that's going on right now in your maybe personal lives, or you're in your communities, or wherever you are, where you're just like, why aren't they reporting this? Why aren't they reporting this? People need to know about this. That's when you pick up your phone, your camera, your computer, whatever it is that you have that will help you get it out. So don't wait for someone else. Do it yourself using whatever networks that we have, our sphere of influence, to get it out there. And so if we combined right now in this room, all of our friends and all the network that we have, our spheres of influence, we would reach into many thousands, right? Many thousands, okay? You know what I have to tell you? Fox, on a good day, their daytime rating, they have 1.2 million viewers, Fox and Friends. If we started really counting and aggregating our network, Coffee Party, for instance, we have 500,000 people in our network, including Facebook. We can really actually start to compete with Fox if we just pulled our networks together. So it's not like your traditional coalition building where you have the leaders of different organizations agreeing on a whatever strategy or statement, but it's just more of us just saying, let's use our networks as delivery systems for getting information out to the people. And that is exactly what happened in Egypt. You had about 12 or 13 people who knew each other. They were in a network. Okay, they were professionals, not really activists, but they were fed up. And they were talking about what they can do using new media for about a year. And then the Tunisia thing happened. And when the Tunisians erupted into their revolution, then people in Egypt said, okay, that's it. This is the moment, because we can show that it's possible. The kind of change we want is actually possible, because it's going on right now in Tunisia. So as soon as people realized it was possible, they used their tools, Facebook and Twitter, to get the truth out quickly. January 25th, be there, we're going to Tahrir Square. And they didn't have a lot of time between saying let's go to January 25th, but they were able to use Facebook and Twitter to bypass the state-run media, Nile TV, to get information out. And so it didn't matter what was reported by Nile TV, because they were able to tell their story in a way that convinced the majority of Egyptians to side with them over the state. We can do the same thing. Okay, we may not be able to get, millions of people out on the street right now, but we can use the same tools that the Egyptians used and other people are using around the world to get the truth out and to start convincing the rest of America the kind of changes that we want. It's actually possible. It's not just campaign rhetoric. It is actually possible. And you know what? People in the ruling elite, they actually know this, and this is why they try to suppress news about what's happening in places like Iceland and Israel and in Spain and Greece and Britain, where these things are actually happening. They are mobilizing along exactly the same issues that we're concerned about here. Corruption, the lack of regulation on Wall Street and how rigged our financial system is, the fact that we are going through an economic struggle and that they're trying to take away social services right now when we urgently need them for just survival. The issues are similar. It's not a dictatorship, not the old school dictatorship that we see in the Arab world. These are democracies saying we want to renegotiate our social contract. And you know what? We can do the same thing here. But we have to get people to understand what the reality is and what is possible. Obama talked in the language of what's possible and got lots of people to believe that these big changes were possible if only we voted for him and campaigned for him, right? Well, I mean, the real shift that needs to happen in America is that we started believing in really the same changes that we imagined in our heads when we listened to that campaign message. The same changes, but instead of believing in a candidate or Obama, it's really about believing in ourselves. We have to believe in ourselves and our abilities to discern the truth and to be part of the decision making and to be at the table and insist on being at the table. Okay, so this is why, we can talk all we want about how powerful these tools are that in our hand right now. We have the capacity that governments didn't have, 15 years ago. We have it in our hand. The amount of data and the power to get it out there. But it's none of these things will make a difference. It will all be used for building the consumerist society or reinforcing consumerism if we don't channel it. So we have to become not only creators of content, but distributors of content. Okay, when we can do that, when you do it already every day. You do it every day when you share something on Facebook, or you tweet something, or even if you talk to your friend about something. We're already trying to change the story and get our truth out. But it's really about now creating that super network and interlocking spheres of influence and us stepping it up. Not just doing it because you feel like venting. Because most of us do that. I admit that often I know this isn't going to get me anywhere in terms of political impact, but I just want to vent and have everyone say, yeah, yeah, yeah. So that feels good, but we can step it up in a very deliberate way to start to counter the false narratives that we're seeing in our mainstream political discourse. This is why I asked Kevin and Margaret if we could do this workshop several weeks before their event, because I want us to use that event to experiment with this. How much influence can we have if we really pumped it out there, got our stories out there, blog, tweet it? You might think it's silly and it's time-consuming while you're there and you're excited because your friends are there and so much is going on. But I would really like for all of us to really commit to being there as reporters and helping the world understand what is actually going on Freedom Plaza, as opposed to what other people want them to see. Can we do that? Can we commit to that? Okay, because without your commitment, it's not going to happen. With as much leadership and passion that can come out of a few people in the movement, unless there's buy-in from the majority of us participating, and a real willingness to try something that hasn't been done before, and really get rid of our cynicism, just shed that cynicism, get rid of it right now, and really start to believe that this is the time to test it. Can our participation really go up against big money and corporate power. Don't you want to test that? Yes. Okay. So I want to test that. So I would like to invite you. Okay, and I'm willing to spend time really teaching like the nuts and bolts of what I know, and Eric's a filmmaker, and what Eric knows, and I'm sure there are people here who are experts at other things that I don't even know, like maybe they're Twitter experts here. I'm not a big Twitter person, but we can all sort of combine our knowledge and commit to creating this whole other way of telling the story about what is really happening in America and where the real leadership is, right here. When I look at you guys, I see leadership in America. Because you know what? I'm not seeing it on Capitol Hill. It's at Busboys and Poets right now. So you have to embrace it. You have to embrace it. You have to say, I'm a leader, and I'm a movement leader. We have got to build this movement and use every resource that we have, okay, to say that we're still a democracy, and we're going to show you what participation can look like.